So today we live in a skills-based industry and in a skills-based environment. So that's why everyone is talking about building skills, building communication skills,
Absolutely.
building artistic skills. What the academia is teaching is how to do research and development, how to read, how to learn, and if during your university years you are only relying on what they teach you there, you are already too late. Yes, there is a creativity in the AI, but not like the same like the human, because the human can always surprise you with something that you didn't expect, which is something outside of this learning machine and things. And this is how you have outstanding human talents like Van Gogh and etc.
The Infinite Perspective Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Infinite Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Hamad Mustafa. Today, I have the great pleasure of hosting an individual who has truly done it all. Dr. Annie Atanasova is the founder and CEO of Pixelhunters, a Dubai-based company that specializes in 3D animation, game development, AR/VR technology, and much more. Dr. Annie has a PhD in quantum optoelectronics and is currently doing another PhD for the gamification of learning. She's on the advisory boards for various different universities and organizations across the UAE. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me and inviting me to be with you.
Of course. So your credentials are just amazing. There's your education, your academics, they're just, again, something that a lot of people strive for. You're the founder of a leading animation studio. So I want to start off the first question by asking you, I want this to be very relatable. So I guess I speak for a lot of young people. When they start out their careers, a lot of young people don't know what they want to do. So sometimes if they're studying, for example, computer science, they don't know exactly what industry path to take. So how would someone go about determining what they want to do based off their education?
Well, first of all, every young person needs to know himself. This is the start of everything.
Right.
So if you know yourself, if you know your interests, if you know your passions, and if you know approximately which field you are interested in, you can dig further, and actually this can become a career. So it's not necessarily that you know from day one what you want to become in life,
Right.
but with the time, knowing yourself, you can easily define what motivates you, what makes you happy, what you love doing, so you can start selecting your development path. If you love what you're doing, you will be fantastic whatever you do in life.
Right, absolutely. So in terms of that, some people say that if they do something that they love, oftentimes it doesn't pay as well. So how do you find that balance in doing something that you love, but it may not necessarily pay as well? So for example, if someone's doing computer science, but they want to go into, for example, a certain area in game development, it doesn't necessarily pay well. How do you think they can go about finding a balance, of finding something that pays well too, but they also enjoy doing?
Well, if anyone is only motivated by money, most probably he will not be very successful in whatever career he selects.
Right.
So money shouldn't be the driving force towards a career. Money can be the outcome of a well-done job,
Okay.
but it cannot be motivation for a career.
Okay.
And remember, every start, doesn't matter what career you select, every start is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you don't have the experience, you don't have the credentials, you didn't prove yourself.
Right.
So every career is very difficult. So you need to accept that there will be a lot of hard stones in front of you. You need to accept that you need to work very hard to prove yourself.
Okay.
And if you love what you do, if you work hard, money are coming,
Right. True, absolutely. It's kind of interesting because I think even if you do something that you love, but it doesn't necessarily pay well, it still eventually adds on to your skill set in a way where you're gonna get that return on investment. The effort that you've put into learning something that you love doing. So for example, I don't necessarily do animation right now, but I have a marketing agency, and sometimes we have clients who have this demand of wanting animation and VFX, and I'm like, okay, I have that skill set because I loved doing it, and I still love doing it. So why not? I think definitely it makes sense what you're saying. It all just eventually snowballs into this whole, definition of who you are as a person. My next question is going to be about contentment in a sense. So you are the founder of a very successful animation studio, and you've almost done your second PhD right now. A lot of young people don't know whether to pursue academics or to just get a head start in their career and just skip the whole education and universities and going to college and just starting out their businesses. What would you advise to people who are kind of confused in this regard?
Being from both sides of the road,
Exactly.
I can suggest two things. You cannot say, okay, let's keep one thing and focus only on the other. Because academia and professions, they have a different skill set needed, and they have a different requirement. For example, academia is good because it prepares you for the foundations.
True.
So having a good education is not making you a good professional. So these are completely different tasks. So the role of the university is not to make you a good professional. The role of the university is to prepare you how to read and how to learn. And the next role of the university is to meet you with same like-minded people that you will probably eventually work successfully in the future.
True.
So academia, saying I'm someone who have studied whole his life, so 2 PhDs, and I have master degree in telecom, and I have approximately 300 different diplomas in different courses and etc. So I cannot say neglect the academia because this is something useful.
Right.
So whatever you learn in life, doesn't matter in academia or outside, it's useful. At the same time, especially in our field in animation and game development, you will often meet that the employers don't even care what you have graduated, because our industry is about skills. What you can do, what is your portfolio, what you can bring to the company. Because it is one thing when we are in university, it's another thing when we are in a real work environment. In a real work environment, so first the skills, the creativity, but also the speed, because every project has deadlines, every project has budget. So it's not only about how creative and how good artist I am. It's about tons of other skills like time management, project management, creativity, finance management. So all kind of stuff that makes a project successful.
Right.
So today we live in a skills-based industry and in a skills-based environment. So that's why everyone is talking about building skills, building communication skills,
Absolutely.
building artistic skills, building soft skills. So it's all about skills nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you mentioned that, because this is just based off of my experience. I have friends in various different countries, and specifically I'll bring this up. In America, I have certain friends who have, good academics and they have degrees and stuff, but the job market there, and I feel like a little bit over here as well, they don't give weights to degrees anymore as much as they do to experience. And that's kind of why a lot of young people who've just started their career are kind of struggling, is because they're not able to get these jobs because of that whole experience thing. So they study with the expectation that they're going to get hired, but then they see this requirement, you need 5 years of experience. So that kind of pushes them to struggle a little bit more. So in that light, do you see education evolving a little bit in that regard, in the context of the job market, where perhaps, kind of like how you've mentioned, a lot of these companies are providing these courses where they teach you skills, actual skills that kind of get you ready for the job market.
Well, what I can say is that many people, while they are in the university, they only rely on what they study only in the university.
Yeah.
And university curriculum takes approximately 3 years to get approved and established and everything. So
Right.
in 3 years, can you imagine what phone did you have in 3 years back?
Yeah.
So the industry is evolving super fast. But again, what the academia is teaching is how to do research and development, how to read, how to learn, and if during your university years you are only relying on what they teach you there, you are already too late, because from day one in the university, you need to develop your portfolio every single day. If you have selected the career of an artist or a media professional or a game developer, you have to develop your portfolio literally before the university. So all your life you have to build your portfolio, you have to build your skills. Because when you go to the job market, people need ready to work people who have already the skills, because they need to produce from day one.
Right.
So with this regards, many students can feel upset, but again, the role of the university is not to prepare professionals. The role of the university is to meet you with like-minded people, to prepare you for the learning curve. And what I say everyone, if you think that you finish learning with graduation of the university, it's actually quite opposite.
Yeah.
This is actually your graduation day is the first day of active learning in the academy of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That really makes sense, because a lot of these billionaires that we see, they end up dropping out. But the fact is, they go to universities because that's where they find their co-founders. That's where they find the people that they're going to work with to start Google or Apple or Microsoft. So that really makes sense. So can you tell us a little bit more about gamification of learning, what that exactly is?
Well, everybody knows what's a game, and gamification is when we use game-based mechanics and dynamics into serious topics,
Right.
to attract more interest to something that is not that interesting, like learning. For example, learning is not natural to everyone. Only 10% actually of the entire population like learning. The rest needs a little bit motivation sometimes, especially if the topic is extremely boring.
True.
Then it may need a little bit of a more excitement into the learning, so it can excite you, it can motivate you to put a little bit more interest into it,
Right.
and to perform better, because the entire purpose of gamification is to increase the results of something, being the learning, being the motivation, being the excitement. So there are different strategies behind the gamification, but it is in 2 words, is to attract interest towards something that is not in general that much interesting.
That much interesting, absolutely. Because, in the light of developments in the recent day, my parents, for example, they say that when they were my age, they didn't have the internet the way it is right now. They didn't have all these technologies and things that makes that this immense access of information. But what I argue in our defense, in Gen Z's, in my generation's defense, is I say you also didn't have YouTube and games and TikTok and Instagram, because now everyone knows this. Everyone's attention span is just absolutely destroyed because of these applications. I remember even myself, I used to be able to listen to like long discussions and have long conversations, but now it's just you get really tired of these things. So do you see education kind of adapting to this change as well, where people have very limited attention spans?
Well, it is officially proven that our attention span nowadays is less than a goldfish. And this is officially proven. So you mentioned something very interesting. When your parents were young and when I was young, it was the beginning of the internet. So I grew up without internet, and there was no information.
Yeah.
So it was another problem to have living in an era without information. Right now, we live in an opposite era. We have load of information, so we cannot focus. Our attention span is extremely low. So if we want to focus the attention of the new generation and in general of the people who have a very little attention span, yes, new strategies in learning are applied. That's why the gamification can be very useful, because the so-called micro-learning can be very beneficial. So a little bit of information with a little bit of excitement, given in the right dose and the right time, with the proper feedback and motivation, it actually brings very good results. But yes, right now I think it's even harder than in my time, just because there is so much information that it is difficult even to digest all this information, and mainly the false news and etc. So there's a lot of information which is not valid.
Absolutely.
That we need to work with.
True. And there's this saying that people take stuff for granted when there's large quantities of it. Water in a desert has a different value than water next to like a river or something, because there's a huge surplus of it. What would you say is perhaps the most efficient way of learning something? Now, let's say I want to learn how to play the violin. According to your study, in relation to the gamification of learning, what would be the most efficient step process in undergoing that task in learning?
If we're talking about violin, this is something physical. So, we need to practice. Nothing better than that, because violin is an instrument that you need to practice with your hands and things. So you need to practice. But in general, every learning is about repetition and practicing and learning by doing. So if you do stuff yourself, like building a portfolio, designing animation, building mini games even. This is actually helping much faster in the learning, because in the learning cone of the pyramid of learning, actually 90% of the retention information happens if you learn by doing. So everything that you do by your hands or you practice with your brain is actually much more retaining the information than any other method.
Right.
This is just that you can use games to practice a little bit more on a fun way, right? But practice is everything.
Okay. And what would you say about motivation? So there's this thing, this new concept called dopamine detox. So because we're surrounded by a lot of these things that give us like regular doses of dopamine, which are higher than otherwise normally intended for humans to have, what some people do is they cut off their usage of phones, laptops. They don't use devices or anything, and they just restrict that dopamine dose for an extended period of time. So let's say 2 weeks. Once they're back to the normal levels of how a human should be getting that dopamine, they start enjoying tasks that are otherwise considered to be boring, like reading ideas that are otherwise very hard to grasp. And they start enjoying and actually getting the motivation to do these things because they're not used to that regular dose of dopamine. So I think it's very interesting, because myself included, I'm guilty of this. There's when you're young, you have a lot of energy to learn a lot of different things, but then you just run out of the motivation because there's other cool stuff that, gives you a lot more dopamine. Like in my case, for example, it's probably VFX and 3D gives me a lot more of that than learning how to, program in C and stuff. So I want to take this a little bit towards AI. How do you see education evolving within the lens of AI? We've seen how rapidly it's developed. Do you think AI could eventually do the job of teachers?
I would like to return a little bit back on the dopamine to make a comment. So actually the dopamine is not something bad if we apply it in the context of learning, for example. Because when we play games, actually the level of dopamine is increasing in our brain. And actually when the dopamine level is high, we are more motivated. We actually, the memory retention is faster.
Absolutely.
Understanding rewards is actually happening better. So dopamine is not something bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, but it will become bad, like everything in life, if we don't use it in moderation and if we get saturated. In physics, it's called saturation level. So, you feel excitement. It's inside of every physics process. And then you reach a moment where whatever you do, the outcome is still the same.
Yeah.
So when we reach this level of saturation, we need a pause, or you need something to shake us out, so we can again be at the beginning of the excitement curves. So nothing that brings us out of the normal, nothing that saturates us shouldn't be our target. So we need to use everything exactly in moderation. We can use dopamine stimulated games and etc. We have to do some dopamine detox and etc. So we need to find our balance in life. Everyone talks about balance in life. About the AI, it's a very hot topic.
Yeah.
AI is giving a lot of advantages, and these advantages is actually allowing people to do things faster.
Faster, exactly.
So like a productivity boosting, like time boosting, like organization. So the AI is actually doing a fantastic job, because a certain person productivity, if this person knows how to use the AI tools efficiently, it is boosting the productivity enormously. But this is also true that many people will stay jobless because their job is taken by the AI. But it doesn't mean it's something scary. We just need to adapt and find ourselves, where we are good at, and how we can efficiently use AI to deliver services or products that are more unique. And also the AI development is a different field. So many people are doing fantastic career in developing AI tools. So by itself, it's a great career to have.
This is sort of a philosophical debate around the value of what AI creates. So if an AI creates art and a human creates art, people say the AI art is not as valuable as the effort that a human puts in. But then some people argue, how does an AI learn? It's basically you give it a lot of images, you train it on a data set, and it produces a result on the basis of that. And then people say, but humans do that too. You learn things ever since you're a child. You use your eyes, which are sort of like a sensor. They teach, you teach yourself in your brain, and then you learn how to create art. What would you say about that?
Well, if you look at a picture created by an AI, you will understand the certain patterns.
Yeah.
So you can understand how I can immediately recognize if a picture is created by an AI or not. So if you use AI tools, you can immediately understand which text has been written by ChatGPT, because you can recognize the pattern, you can recognize the style, you can recognize the AI behind it. Also, you cannot register a trademark, for example, for artwork which is generated by an AI, because you don't know who is actually the real author. Yes, there is a creativity in the AI, but not like the same like the human, because the human can always surprise you with something that you didn't expect, which is something outside of this learning machine and things. And this is how you have outstanding human talents like Van Gogh and etc. People which creativity goes outside of the box and it's different. Again, the AI tools and the image generation, they can be fantastic tool for inspiration, for example. But they cannot replace, for example, the actual making it, at least at this stage, because as humans, we have messages to say. As humans, we want to deliver something more unique and inspirational. So you cannot use all AI and all use the same. On another hand, if you write your blogs on ChatGPT and etc., there are tons of engines that are actually recognizing the AI-generated text. So actually, Google will skip all your articles that are written on ChatGPT and will skip on the AI generated images. So if you think that using AI sometimes, especially if you want to generate quality content and attract real people to see your content, if you think that using AI is the right way, actually not. Because all these engines that you're using to promote your work, they're actually detecting the AI usage and they are kind of skipping it because it's AI generated. So we, the humans, still need to use our brains, and we still need to think on other ways to how to be creative. Of course, we can use all the AI tools available to help us, motivate us, create faster, or just facilitate our work. Yes, we can do. But AI so far, I don't see it replacing the human work.
So far. Absolutely. I definitely agree with the part with inspiration. Like it's an amazing form of inspiration. But again, I think what defines the value of art is the intent and the work behind it, how much work someone put in. I think, at least for me, everyone has their own definitions. Within the industry of 3D and game development, how much do you see this, aside from generating art? There's this application now that uses AI tools to, so you know how with motion capture you needed a ton of different cameras, the setups used to go tens of thousands of dollars, super expensive. Now there's an app where you just need an iPhone camera and a tripod, you put it and you do your movements, and then it generates that mocap. It extracts the mocap data from your movements, and you have a relatively high quality file of animation.
Relatively, you said, yeah. So it depends. If you have a Vicon motion capture, which is a very professional equipment for motion capturing, and if you take a portable mock-up, AI supported or etc., the quality of the animation will have some differences. Again, it's not about the process, because things that can be automated as a process, of course, it's better to use tools because it can facilitate and speed up our work. That's why the motion capture were created. We are the first ones to have a motion capture facilities in the country. Right. So we have motion capture facilities from the last 10 years. And these are inertial motion capture, so they don't need cameras. They are with trackers.
Right.
So they capture the movement of people because it helps us speed up the animation process. Right. Because you know well that if a human artist needs to animate characters, a good artist can animate 1 to 3 seconds a day.
Absolutely.
So if I have to make a series animation movie of 20 minutes, imagine how many people need to work on that. True. So processes and operations that can be automated due to software or technologies, of course, it's good to use them. But if you don't have the message, if you don't have the good story, if you don't have the good art and the good production pipeline, you may still fail in the content production.
Right. True.
Everyone has a camera, but not everyone can create a good content with it.
Absolutely. But I definitely think this is kind of making it easier for solo artists who are kind of starting out, building their studios as well, you know. And it's kind of like with 2D animation, first you had to draw and then you had computers, and they just, you know, the process of creating a full-scale animation just really got a lot easier. So in your opinion, what do you think are the biggest disadvantages of AI as we see it evolve and, you know, really?
The biggest disadvantage is that the people become numb because they are so getting used to the use of AI that nowadays I think that if ChatGPT stops existing, many people cannot even write their own emails.
Yeah.
So what I always suggest is we should never be too much dependent on AI or on any technology in general. We still need to use our brain. We still need to know how to calculate elementary things. We still need to know how to survive even without technology. For me, this is dependent. Being addicted to technologies and tools can have a quite opposite effect, because we never know what can happen to us in life. So we should never be too much dependent on anything.
Right. So now I'm going to ask you some community questions. These are questions from fellow young people who have, brought up a bunch of different topics. So the first one is from Hamdan. He's 10 years old. He's actually my cousin. So he asks, why did you choose to start an animation studio?
This is an interesting question. This is the passion of my husband. We run the company together.
Yeah.
So he's an artist with 25 years of experience, and he's recognized talent worldwide for lighting and rendering.
Yeah.
So this was his passion, and he involved me into that. To be honest, at the beginning, it wasn't something that was exciting me much.
Okay.
But you mentioned something earlier about motivation. So the best skill that everyone can have is to be able to self-motivate. Because if you expect that somebody will constantly be around you and push you to be motivated and will care about how much happy you are in what you're doing, this will never happen. So the best skills that every young person can have is the ability to self-motivate.
Right.
This will bring everyone very, very, very far. So I have this skill myself, and I think this is my best skill ever. So whatever anyone puts me to do, I always find something interesting in it, something that motivates me, so I can say that there is no thing in the world that cannot motivate me. I just need to put a little bit focus. And if somebody ever in this world has been motivated by this thing, I will find it and I will get motivated myself. And if you do things with motivation, actually, there is no obstacles and the sky is the limit.
That's very admirable. So what exactly motivated you within animation? What did you find that kind of motivated you?
What I found interesting is that with animation, you can express things that are in your imagination, in your client imagination, and you visualize stuff that don't exist. Yeah. And right now we are all talking about the future and the things, imagination, expressing imagination. So the animation is exactly that. It can help you to deliver messages on a unique way, or things that do not exist, or transfer you to worlds that do not exist. When we started the company, we actually became the first indie game developer in the UAE. What motivated me behind games, every one of my team is a gamer. I can say I'm the least gamer, but I play games with educational purpose. So I study games, motivation behind the games, game mechanics, dynamics and things, how they influence people behavior. And we specialize a lot in games that target behavior change. Right. So I'm also certified psychometrician in few psychometrics, and I study a lot about how the brain works and what motivates and because there's a lot of motivation behind the games. Me personally, as somebody who spent years in academia and in teaching as well, so I found very exciting to use games for business purposes, for education, business games, marketing, because if you use them efficiently, you can achieve something that you cannot achieve in any other matter. So this is what excites me into the field. So from the animation, we became also the first indie game developer on the market. We are celebrating 15 years this year. So it was a long road. I cannot say that it was always easy, but everyone in my team loves what he's doing. So it's not about the project, it's about the challenge and about doing the impossible, because very often we work with impossible deadlines.
I can understand.
But what we do, we love it. And we are absolutely proud of every single project we have done. And these are over 1,500 projects for the last 15 years.
That's unbelievable. That's amazing. Congratulations again on that. What would you say is like your most favorite game overall so far?
Well, I love our games because we have developed a game-based multiplayer platform, and actually we stand behind the multiplayer learning. Not only learning, but learning in a multiplayer dynamics.
Okay.
So I put a lot of time, work, and efforts to develop a game-based platform where we can plug anyone content and to learn in a multiplayer way. Why multiplayer is interesting? First, because the young generation is more or less used to multiplayer settings, but also from awareness perspective and from learning perspective, motivational perspective, actually it saves a lot of time and brings a lot of results which are better, and the motivation is also better, and it's much more fun in a team rather than to be alone. Of course, many people prefer to do things on their own, but majority of the people, especially looking into the social media area, people love to communicate, people love to interact with each other. So multiplayer learning and everything that promotes multiplayer learning, these are my favorite games.
Definitely. So the next question is from Usman. He's 22 years old, and he recently graduated in IT. He asks, how do you maintain discipline and motivation? Because these are two different things, right? Sometimes if you have discipline, you don't necessarily need motivation because you just have this compulsion to do things. So how do you kind of manage both of these different things?
Again, nothing is achievable in life if you don't have the perseverance and the discipline to achieve it. So if you don't follow your goals, if you don't follow your tasks, you will never achieve anything. And then it comes the motivation, and I will refer back to what I said earlier. So actually, if you look in our life, 90% of the things we do, probably we don't like.
Yeah.
So how we can then overcome this barrier? Just learn how to find motivation in these 90% that we don't like, so we can turn 100% of what we do into a motivation. Then the discipline and the motivation, they come together. So it all depends in our mindset, how we perceive everything in front of us. If we constantly put in our mind, I don't like this task, I don't like it. If you constantly repeat this one to yourself, you will hate it. So whatever discipline you put, you will have to work harder to achieve anything. But if you find something interesting about this task, even cleaning, you can find motivation even in cleaning, how I can clean faster or how I can clean better, or how I can clean more things for less time, or whatever. You put challenge for yourself and motivation, and then you will see that whatever you do is not that much boring, annoying and things, and actually the work will go faster for you. So you'll feel better motivation in doing everything.
The next question is from Subhan. He's 21 years old. He's working as a real estate agent here in Dubai. And he asks how to prioritize things in the early stages of one's career. So, when you're an ambitious young person, you've got family, you've got your own personal time, and then you've got your work. And sometimes these things conflict. Sometimes if you compromise on family, that's not good for you. If you compromise on work, that's not good for you either. So how do you, especially with you, with the PSD and Pixelhunters, how do you kind of manage all of those, and how do you prioritize?
The priorities comes like what everyone has in mind for being his priority. It doesn't mean that if you don't spend much time for exercising, it's something necessarily too bad, although it's not good, but you may prefer to study more than, for example, exercising.
Right.
So priority is something which is individual for everyone. Balance is the best thing, although it's very difficult to achieve balance in the nowadays life. But what is interesting, at least for me, is I have my goals, and I put the roadmap of my goals, and I can honestly say I'm someone who achieved 99% of all his goals.
That's amazing.
So I have a goal, I follow these goals, and I'm trying every day to achieve something towards my goals. And you try to find your balance. Sometimes you can give priority on one thing over the another, but as far as you feel happy and as far you follow your goals and dreams and you achieve them, it's actually all that matters.
The next question is a little bit similar but different as well. It's from Samantha, 23 years old. She's currently working as a AI engineer. And the question is, what was your roadmap in life when you were like young, in your teens or in your early 20s, when you were looking at or determining what your career is going to be, and what kind of not motivated, but what made you decide to pursue a PhD? And so what really was behind all of that?
Well, probably I'm some of the persons with the most weird career development, because I changed different career paths during my journey. And I can honestly say that everything that I've learned and all my career path, actually, they kind of joined now. So everything I've done in my life is actually helping me becoming a better professional.
Right.
I wanted to become a teacher in French because I'm a French speaker.
Wow.
And I had parents who are engineers, so they kind of pushed me to become engineer. I hated this one at the beginning, but then not only I graduated as an engineer, but I also made a PhD.
Right.
So if you find people who motivate you down the road, it can actually, doesn't matter that initially you didn't have passion towards something. If you find somebody who can succeed to motivate you or inspire you to do something, you can achieve everything.
I relate to what you said. You had a lot of these career changes. So with me, I have a marketing agency now. I'm into 3D and VFX. Right now it's more of a hobby, but I still do that. I'm into real estate as well. I'm doing this podcast. I have a fashion brand, which I just started. This is actually my own clothing and design and stuff. So a lot of these different things. And I'm also super, super deep into theoretical physics and stuff. So even though there's a lot of these things, I still feel really confused about what it is that I really want to do. Because at the end of the day, I don't feel like I've completely, truly realized what it is. So what would you advise to someone like me who has all these options but doesn't really know what way to go?
You know, at the beginning, probably you will get confused because you are doing way too many things that are way too different.
Right.
So it is normal to feel confused. But with the time and doing the things moving forward, because it's like, you have different blocks, right? And you imagine that every one of your activities are different blocks.
Right.
So you try to move them forward, like in a game.
Yeah.
So you are putting a different efforts to move these blocks. So you will realize few things. What excites you more? To move the blocks faster and make more money, or to move the blocks slower? But for example, I don't want to talk about money here because it's not a good example. But for example, whatever, I will talk about physics and efforts. So whatever you move with less efforts and makes you more pleasure and helps you to reach faster your desired goal line.
Right.
This is what it will be automatically selected, because you're gonna see you cannot keep doing 3 zillion things that are completely different.
Yeah.
Because as activities they are very different. You cannot be equally motivated to do all this stuff. So with the time you will see that some activities will drop off automatically, some activities will stay. So give it a little bit of a time and you will see whatever stays, this will be actually probably your most preferred career path. But again, it's not necessarily that you do only one thing in life, because all these things that you learn, for example, if you learn how to merchandise, if you learn how to market, all this is helping into, for example, having a marketing agency.
Yeah.
So all of these skill set that you learn, they are actually helping each other to help you achieve your goals. But what you mostly like to do and what you mostly brings you results, actually this will be most probably your essential career. And again, if you put passion, if you work hard, money always comes. That's why I don't want to talk about money.
Yeah.
So as an employer, I can tell there is not even one single employer in the world that doesn't like talented people and hardworking people. If some employer tells you that, I will throw my PhDs in the dustbin. So all employers, everyone is looking for talented and motivated people. So if you prove your skills and if you bring results to your employer or your career or your business, the business will bring back to you.
Okay. So I have two questions, but I'm going to start off with the first one. So again, for young people, what would you advise is on starting a business? Like when you're young, especially, like how do you figure out what it is you want to do, and what is, in your opinion, the best way to kind of start a business early on?
As a business in general, doesn't matter what is the business, you need to understand about business dynamics. For example, and this can be something super elementary, it can be anything. So what is the most important in a business? It's to have a capital, okay? So how, for example, to raise a capital? I will ask my parents, okay, give me 1,000 dirham to create my own mini business. Then it's about people, with whom you intend to do this business, because being a solo player is okay, solo designer and things and etc. It's okay, but you will always achieve much more in a teamwork, because the different people have a different skills. They bring a different value to the teamwork. So when you combine many talented people in the same place, actually the result can be much more splendid. So the main business mechanics are valid for everything. So understand from finances, how does it work? So money management, even your wallet, how much money you have in your pocket and how much money, for example, you have left at the end of the month. Do you succeed to save? Do you succeed to put your money into something valuable, or you just waste your money and you ask for more and more? So building business, doesn't matter the subject, is about knowing the basics of finance, marketing, even how to build your own marketing, how to build your own brand, not to post stupid things on social media, because this can fire back on you one day. So building your brand, building your reputation, showing how serious you are, because it might be funny to look stupid, and post all kind of things on the social media. But one day, think about, you might not be very proud of what you have posted, because you leave a digital footprint forever. So it's very important from an early stage to learn the do's and don'ts in the social media and how to work effectively with the social media.
Right. So that's a huge problem these days. Like young people, they post stuff and it's like, we need to understand the consequences. Like this stuff is going to fire back, and it's like right now you might see it and you're like, okay, this is kind of cool and maybe this is funny, but it's always going to fire back. If something's on the internet and it gets around 1,000 views or something or more, it's very likely that it's going to stay there forever, even if someone tries to get rid of it.
I'm certified in all the social media channels and analytics and everything. So I have diplomas and courses done on all these new topics. And till now, I cannot understand what is the value of, for example, gathering so many views on useless things, especially they don't bring any value or anything, and they don't even bring any money. So what is the buzz of generating 1,000 views or 1 million views over a stupid content? I still don't get this one. I still believe, maybe I'm from the older generation, I still believe that if we create value, the value will come to us. If we create stupid things, what would we expect? Of course, some people probably do a lot of money from a variety of things. But if we look overall of the entire generation in the world, I believe that creating value is bringing sustainable development all over your entire life.
So, perhaps one last question. Pixelhunters, I've seen, it's a very, very versatile company. Now, it does 3D animation. 3D animation in itself is a highly specialized field. You need lighting specialists, you need animators, you need modelers, you need people who do rigging and then simulations. It's a very, very specialized field. But Pixelhunters, which is an animation studio, also does AR, VR, game development, and a whole bunch of other things that you can tell us about. How do you develop that wide of a range of versatility and bring all of those skills into one company?
Well, it's very important, and this is very important for the young people to build a variety of skills, because nowadays, first of all, everything is about time. So every project development is for a very short time, which means that you need to have very skilled people, which means that you need to have people who have more skills than one. For example, in the past, if you had to produce an animation movie, you had people who are only doing rigging.
Yeah.
In smaller studios, and small productions, I'm not talking about feature movies, you cannot afford to have one rigger, because you have a project where you have one character, and then 3 months later, you may have completely different projects. So what this person will do. So from sustainability perspective, for small studios in any studio that produce anything outside of feature films, saying that, because the feature films is a completely different perspective and a completely different pipeline, because you work for 2 years over the movie. If you are in the media industry and business, where you create smaller projects, doesn't matter, it can be half an hour on animation, but still smaller pipeline project, you need people that are very versatile and people who have variety of skills, so you can make your company to survive. Because we have seen the COVID, and I can say that we were the only one left in the entire floor in Media City. We're in the neighbor building, so it wasn't something nice to see. We are happy that we survived, but such things can exist. So it's very important to take care of your people. It's very important to have people with good skills and a very good teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time. It was an amazing episode. And I think we can wrap this up. All right.